Thanks. First off, thank you guys for coming. Want to thank Polar for hosting me at this event. Josh and David, great guys. If you get a chance, stop by their booth. They're on the back side you got Gatorade, and they're on the back side there. Go see those guys. Great guys to talk to, just talk shop, learn about their system. And then also want to thank the CSCCa for hosting this event. You know, these types of events are great. And what they're about is building relationships, growing your network, and learning from one another. This is a shared profession. So if you leave this conference and you haven't added one more coach to your wheelhouse, you're doing yourself a disservice. Get outside your circle of friends. It's one of the things I did wrong as a strength coach when I first started. I just kind of stayed in my lane and didn't get outside of that. Go out and meet other people, share ideas, take advantage of that, because that's what these conferences are about. And I'll just say this. This is not a sales pitch for the Polar system. What I'm going to teach you today is you can apply this to any system. Okay? It just so happens that we use the Polar system and it works really well for us. I have to give 30-minute presentation. I could probably sit up there and talk about this stuff for 2 hours. Okay? But I'm going to give you a 30,000 feet review of what we do. And I'm one of these guys, if you want to reach out to me and talk shop, I'll talk with you all day, because I'm going to learn something from you and you're going to learn something from me. And I'm very approachable. One of the things that I remember when I was starting this profession and trying to do this stuff, it was hard to get your foot in the door or advance your career. And it's one thing I can give back to the profession is people who want to grow and become better and climb the ranks or wherever they want to go. I'm here to help you do that every step of the way. So if I don't get to something, you got questions, we're not able to answer it here today, you'll be able to get in touch with me, no problem. Okay. I saw this on Facebook, and I thought, man, that's me. Because in the weight room, I could take kilos and pounds, and I'm like I'm like Rain Man. Like I can add that stuff up, right? You put me in a math class, gears grinding whole, right? And I put this up here because at the end of the day, I'm a strength coach. I'm not a sports scientist, and I'm not going to sit up here and pretend to be a sports scientist. I'm a strength coach, okay? And I got a C in Cal and Trig, and I was absolutely elated with that. I probably know enough about Excel to get myself in trouble, right? And but at the end of the day, I've got almost over 10 years experience working with the heart rate monitoring systems, and I've used them all. I started off with Suunto, First Beat, Polar Team 2, Polar Team Pro, Zephyr, Catapult. All those are great systems. And what I'm going to teach you today, you can use those. And I got into basketball and said, holy crap, these coaches are killing these kids. I need something to show the coaches of what they're doing. And that was obviously met with fierce opposition, but we got through that. So at the end of the day, again, the moral of this, I'm a strength coach, but I'm going to show you some stuff that I have done through the years that's worked really well. By show of hands, how many of you guys went and listened to Jason Durkin? Jason and I were undergrad together. And so if you went to that presentation, he did all the philosophy pieces. There's a lot of pieces of this. I'm going to give you a profile. I'm going to teach you exactly what you can do and kind of profile your athletes individually and figure that out. So it's kind of nice if you were there. This is going to be great. Love this quote from Mike Hoffman, was just in a recent Sports Illustrated article. The whole goal of sports science is to help practitioners save time, okay? Not collect a bunch of data points. Again, we're not sports scientists. We're strength conditioning coaches, right? And so my purpose today, again, is to give you a practical way that you as a coach can implement this through your entire sports program or team, okay? This is my favorite quote. I use this all the time, and this is one of the things one of the quotes that I use with my staff, and more importantly, this is what I tell recruits when they come in. Anybody in the world can get you stronger. I think that's the easiest thing in the world to do. It really is. And I think anybody can make somebody tired. Super easy. You know, you could probably go on, get a WOD off of YouTube or somewhere off of that and probably come up with something to make somebody puke, right? It's pretty easy. At the end of the day, though, you got to make people better. And that's what we're in the business in. We're in the business of making people the best versions of themselves. And that's really what at the end of the day it's all about. Yeah, you may be able to squat a house or bench a car or whatever the case may be, but if that doesn't translate to the basketball court or any sport for that matter, just makes him a great weightlifter, doesn't make him a great athlete. And again, We're in the business of making people the best versions of themselves. And Durkin used an analogy of a car, a race car, high-performance mechanic. I use the same analogy, all right? The athlete's a high-performance sports car. I'm a mechanic. The weight room's my garage. And that high-performance car needs constant evaluation. So I always like to do this because we use technology at Dayton when I was there. So obviously we started off with the men. I gave you the reason why. Well, the women wanted to use it, right? Because if the men have it, the women got to have it, right? And the women always use the men as the benchmark to how much they're working. Bad idea, right? Because gender difference, different hormone system, bone density, musculature. But nonetheless, that's what happened. And so we started them off, and I was pretty elated to do that because for the 2 years prior I was there, we averaged 2 stress fractures a year. And prior to me even being there, it was about, I think the total average was like 1.6 if you average it all. We had stress fractures every year of the women. And I was lucky enough for our team physician to blame me because of the Olympic lifting we were doing. It was the shifting of the feet that was causing those stress fractures, right? Right? God, stupid Olympic lifting, right? Never mind that this contrary to anything that involves stress reaction, but nonetheless, so we strapped the girls up. You know what we found out? They were basically doing an overtime game every single day in practice. And so when we managed the load, the duration, and intensity, and we were able to glean the information off of that, we managed that. And the end result of that was stress fractures gone, never to return. And I kept doing Olympic lifting. All right? So did we get those kids better? Yes, we did. And we used technology to do that. And I like this quote here from Vern. Some people say he's an angry old man with a Facebook page. But he does say some really good stuff. And at the end of the day, I love his quote here. Numbers are one-dimensional. Athletes are three-dimensional. Training is three-dimensional. Okay? So there are a lot of crazy things being said and done based on data points that's one-dimensionally concluded, not three-dimensionally applied. Follow me? So hopefully I'm going to be able to share some stuff with you on that. And again, it's a 1,000-piece puzzle. That's the art of coaching, right? Being able to take this 1,000-piece puzzle and funnel it down into the best performing product possible. All right? Take that high-performance sports car and make it run at peak performance. This is the importance of it. I got 30 seconds, so I'm going to bust right through this. This is one I always like to do. So coaches all the time, they always say, I want to get my guys tough. I want to know how tough they are. Okay? Well, better get on the road and recruit a little bit better than what you're doing. All right? It's, I can't polish a turd. You can rub it all you want, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. You can roll sprinkles on it, whatever. But anyways. So, but at the end of the time, this is always like to do, and Jason talked about this and it was really good. You get this arbitrary time. So if I have 2 athletes, this is the way I used to do it, right? Okay, last year's team did this, we were successful, so therefore this team must accomplish that time goal and that time trial in order to be successful, right? Not fair. And so if I have 2 athletes and I say we're going to do a 2-mile test and you've got to complete the test in 7 minutes, or 14 minutes, and I have athlete A and B come across the finish line, boom, you're in shape, you don't have to do extra running, okay? But the reality is athlete A performed that test at 85% of their max heart rate. That was the average. Athlete B did it at 95%. They both finished at the same time. Who's in better shape? Athlete A or B? A. Who's tougher? B. There you go, coach. There's your toughness test. You'll find out who's tough. But the problem is, if I just looked at that number and just arbitrarily number that I just pulled out, I have no understanding of what the RPMs were underneath the hood of that car. I was able to look at the heart and see how that impacted that athlete. And so this is a great example because, unfortunately, this guy is probably going to be about mid-season, is going to break down, and he's going to be cheering his team on. And he's not going to be able to perform. This is how we use the Team Pro system. Okay? So first and foremost, we're going to utilize the system to determine a fitness classification and fitness level. That's the first and foremost. And I'm going to talk to you, I'm going to spend specifically on that because a lot of folks don't spend the time to do that. They take it right out of the box and they go with it. I think it's a bad idea. And because, let's say, anybody do the FMS, do the hurdle step, how do we standardize that test? We measure the length of the person's tibia and fibia from the floor all the way up to the bottom of the tibial tuberosity. That standardizes that, lets us know what that actual 1, 2, or 3 score is. So if we just had this arbitrary height and we didn't standardize it, well, tall guys would score really good and short guys would score really poor all the time, right? So I think you have to, number one, you got to figure out exactly what the fitness level is of the athlete, give them a fitness classification, and then from there, you can develop an energy system model to bring those athletes up to speed. Okay? And it's no different. You bring the athletes in, you test them, you see what their strengths are, and then you create a periodized, whether it's undulating or linear, whatever the case may be, you develop a program based around that athlete's capabilities. And Jason talked about it. We do really good with that in the strength part. The conditioning piece, it falls by the wayside. We don't really apply a lot of those same principles, and we should. Then we do preseason. So then we look at the preseason. And what is preseason? It is a series of games, scrimmages, practices, exhibition games in order to what? Prepare you for the season. Long gone should be the days of two-a-days, because now my athletes are training 48 weeks out of a 52-week calendar. There's no need to do it for two-a-days, right? And what the purpose of two-a-days? Well, you saw in Jason's presentation. They get the guys in shape really quick. Well, it will get them in shape, but it's not long-term. And they can't sustain that, and that's where you have those problems. So we look at the preseason, and we say, all right, that's usually 6 to 8 weeks. Then we'll say, well, let's look at the first 6 to 8 weeks of the season. When do we play games? We're never going to play back-to-back-to-back-to-back-to-back-to-back games. Okay? If we go on a tournament, that's only going to happen one time in the preseason. We go back-to-back, off a day, play again. We bring home the hardware. Okay? That's it. But most of the time, you look at it and you say, Monday or Tuesday we're playing, Thursday we're playing, and Sunday. Well, we know what loads are created in that. So we say, I have a system, it's basically 4s and 5s. You're 25 minutes plus, it's 4. If you're 30 minutes plus, it's a 5. You generate that. And that's a different conversation. But anyways, we look at that, and so we say we're going to make our preseason look that way. And then it's designed to what? Prepare you for season. And then once the season comes around, then we're looking at how are they managing those stress loads. Because here, I developed their energy system to be able to handle this. I brought them up to speed. The coaches are going to take over largely, okay, doing the stuff that they need to do in terms of getting those guys up to speed. They're going to go to higher intensity. I just prepared them for a higher level load of practice. And then we're in season, we're just managing. So the coaches know it's 72, 48, 24 hours out from a game where we need to be. Make sense? All right. So, fitness test. I don't do this fitness test anymore. I do a 30-15 intermittent fitness test now. Okay, but I will show you basically what I'm doing here is I am looking to get a max heart rate. All right? Because if I'm going to periodize that, I'm going to standardize. I got to figure out what your max heart rate is. I can't use 220 minus your age. Everybody's different, right? Find out what your max heart rate is, and then I want to look at what your resting heart rate, that's another thing. That's a sign of your level of fitness. But also your 1-minute recovery from max heart rate, from max load. Okay? I want to look at that. And that's how I get my fitness classification. So I used to do, well, I'm not getting ahead of myself. So we used to put them on the treadmill, and we warm them up, and we have basically, this is the test. So you start off 2 minutes, 6 miles an hour, 2% grade, stays 2%, kind of create that, mimic that horizontal displacement, because obviously the ground's running underneath you. And then there we were able to get, based on the athlete jumped off here, we would look over here, this would give us their VO2 max, and we would score that. And each stage it's changing, I'm recording heart rate. And the nice thing about this is, let's say, first test I do at stage, you jumped off at stage, or we'll just look at stage 5. Okay? Let's say you were at 168 beats per minute at stage 5. 8 weeks later, I retest you. Now you're at 162. Guess what happened? More efficient, right? I basically put overdrive in the car engine. Same speed, same intensity. Okay? Same duration, but what did I do? I became more metabolically efficient. That lets me know we're going the right direction. No different than, how is he? Did he get stronger? Yeah, he got stronger. Look, he's using more weight. If you got to be able to time, if you're able to use the velocity-based piece, yeah. He's using the same weight, but he's actually moving at 7.75. Now he's moving at 0.82. He got better. So this is a way for you to be able to look at, periodize, and see how well your guys are progressing and if what you're prescribing is actually having a good impact. Does that make sense? So I don't do this anymore. I used to do VO2 max classifications and talk to some people a lot smarter than me. And what I learned was if I just move about 1 milliliter per kilogram per minute, if I move that over by an athlete, you know how many seconds I've taken off his mile? About 8. What the hell is that going to do in a power-dominated sport? So I said there's got to be a better way to do this. So I came up with this scale. This is my thing. Again, I just cross-referenced it with people a lot smarter, and Jason looked at it this morning and said, man, that's really good. So there you go. Yeah, there you go. So again, I'm going to look at fitness levels and your fitness classification. And at max test, the moment that you end the test, you stand around, you don't move, 1 minute. Then I've got this obviously being captured live. I'm able to go back and look at that information. So if I had an athlete who at the end of their test, I go back and look at it, and they recover 21 beats in a minute. What are they? Average, and their fitness level is level 2, right? Simple, right? So when I know that, then I've got a framework from which to build on. Okay? Jason talked about in his presentation. The large basis of what you're going to end up working with that athlete is going to be largely endurance-based. Okay? It's going to be largely endurance-based. You're not going to spend a lot of time. I talked about lactic threshold and all that stuff. I got to be honest with you, we don't spend a lot of time doing that stuff. When I look at the coaches out there on the basketball court, they're revving the engine, man. They're redlining that rascal all the time. So I said, well, why the hell am I double dipping? Why am I giving? It's Tuesday. We're supposed to do these. The hell with that. We got to change that. We got to change that mentality. Like if you're doing volleyball and they have a big-time hitting practice where the girls are jumping around, would you literally bring them back in after that and do plyometric training? So why the hell would you bring them in after a really high, intense practice the previous day or the same day, or they're going to have one that afternoon you're just going to go? Why would you do a bunch of high-intensity interval work? All right? Give them what they need, not what they don't. So this is a way for you to do a group fitness thing. 30-15, again. Holy crap, I'm going to need some water. If you guys, again, Martin Boucher, if you guys want to hit me up, Martin Boucher, I called him up. He came up with the 30-15 test. It's an intermittent test. You can have everybody go on the court. I literally called the guy up. He gave me his entire Dropbox. You just got to reach out to him, tell him what you do. He's absolutely unbelievable. Thank you so much. Awesome. Coaching voice is weak. Been off for a couple weeks. Okay. So I take all this information, and again, I standardize this. I standardize this stuff, and I put it right into the computer, into the profile for the athlete. So when I'm looking at the numbers, I'm getting the information that's specific for that athlete. Does that make sense? So again, I'm looking at 4 components of energy system development. Endurance, ability to stay at fast pace the entire game. Stamina, the ability to sprint back and forth for several plays in a row. The ability to go at race pace while using the least amount of oxygen. Economy. And then we're looking at speed, the leg speed to be the first to get to the ball or the ball carrier. And again, we're manipulating all this stuff right here, right? Low intensity versus high. Volume. Off-season versus competition. How we do all that. Okay, there's the art. And so once I have those fitness levels with those athletes, right, I've got all that information. Then what I do is I have this awesome handy-dandy flow chart. Okay? So I want you to look at this for a second. Regardless of my fitness level, I will always do these same amount of weeks. I will dedicate all of these the same amount of time. What changes? Endurance base. And Jason talked about it. If you want it to stick, if you want what you're doing training to stick with that athlete, you got to do this. And more importantly, the energy system that's not getting tapped with the athletes when they're out in the court is the 60 to 75% of their max heart rate. That's getting leapfrogged. Okay? And they're living in these all the time. The only time we get down on this is when we're shooting free throws and we get water break. And then it's unbelievable. Okay? So if I had that athlete, level 2, it's kind of the low end of the spectrum of level 2, right? I'm going to put him right here at level 2, and I'm going to look at how much time do I want to dedicate to this athlete in spinning that, okay, and bringing his body up to speed. So this is how you do it. Jason talked about this. You got to regress. So this is a high school athlete, plays football. His mother is our athletic trainer for women's basketball. She said, would you help him out? His 2 brothers play for Air Force. All he wants to do is play football in college. Sure. And so what I did was, okay, there's 2-week speed phases with this guy, this kid. So I say July 29th is when he starts practice. So the first 2 weeks, I'm going to regress back. Then I got 4 weeks of economy here, right? And then I got 4 weeks of stamina. Because this stays the same. This doesn't change. What changes? Endurance. So basically, he came to me in December. I got May 1st till whenever he started doing the test. It lets me know how much time I've got to work with him on his endurance. How much time am I going to dedicate to that? Make sense? How am I doing on time? Man, I flew right through that. So the reason why I do it this way, and again now, like I'm only spending a couple of, like twice a week if they're not in practice with the coaches. If they're not doing work with the coaches. If it's just me, then we'll make sure we do some of this if they're at the certain level that they need to be at. Okay? Does that make sense? And then we'll introduce that. But the reason why, I'm looking at this, basketball was like that. My tennis team, completely different now. Coaches are really methodical. A lot of coaching and instruction. Not really able to get their heart rate up very high. And their heart rate isn't going to get real high, right? The average volley in tennis lasts 10 seconds with about a 20-second recovery. Okay? So, but when you accumulate that over an hour's time of match play, then we have to have some level of lactate tolerance. Not threshold, just tolerance. I'm up here right now and I'm producing lactic acid. Okay, just walking around. You always are. But in terms of that, but I'm not going to go down that path. But anyways, that's what I'm looking at. So in that situation, I said, okay, coaches, you don't need to change up what you're doing. Just let me get them twice a week at doing some high-intensity interval work with them. And that was all the difference we need. We were able to create a straining stimulus that allowed those kids to be able to stay, because we had problems, right? The season would progress and they would actually decondition. Because the perception is, well, they're getting enough in practice. No, they weren't. And the coaches weren't comfortable. I wasn't comfortable telling a coach, like, they need to work harder. Can you imagine? Hey, we're not working hard enough. We need to run more. And you gave that freedom to the coaches. You know what that's going to look like? Okay? So I said, I'll take care of that. And we do everything on bikes. And a funny story is, I always share this because I got time. So my freshman comes in, and we obviously test him. We get him all this and give him his heart rate monitor. And, we're probably about a good 8 to 10 weeks into the program. He said, Coach, you got a second? He's like, I think the heart rate monitor's messed up. I said, yeah, man, come on in. I said, what's going on? He's like, well, here's the problem. He's like, we did everything on the bikes. He's like, when you make us climb to get our heart rate up. I said, yeah. He's like, well, it takes me forever now to climb. And then the moment I sit down, I got to stand right back up. And I said, dude, there's nothing wrong with your heart rate monitor. You're getting in shape. That's awesome. You just told me I did a good job. So, and how I actually manage all this. So if I got some guys that are level 3 at the end of the season. Okay, and then I got some guys that are level 1s and 2s that are just beat up. So my level 3 guys, all I need to do is do like 2 days a week maintenance of 60 to 75%. I'll build up to 75, back down to 60, up to 75, back down to 60. Just twice a week. Now my guys that are level 1s and 2s, they're with me 4 or 5 days a week. They got to do extra. And this is a great way, like, oh, coaches hope being picky on me. No, you're out of shape. My favorite is that coaches are like, that guy always seems to get out of shape really quickly. Coach, he was never in shape. Okay, he was never in shape. So, and that's a really easy way for you to get your kids to buy into what you're doing. And it's no different. You're doing the same thing in the weight room. They're seeing that, though. The body's changing, right? Feeling it on the court. I'm able to lift more weight. They can see it instantly. If you can do this and show them that, and you have conversations with kids about how your heart rate monitor is broke because it takes forever for you to get your heart rate up, you're doing good. If you're doing something right, your athletes will let you know. They'll tell you. That's how we do that. One of the things we do, this is kind of a, because we standardize it, we actually have it right on the court. So we shoot up the information. So this is kind of goes beyond the science. It's more of a cultural development. Don't be the last guy. You can look at it real time and see who's working the hardest in practice real time. So what do we say? Don't be the last guy today. And it's just a suicide at the end of practice, but it's a suicide. Nobody wants to do it. Don't be the last guy, right? And guys are old time. They're all kind of overlooking at the thing like, Coach, can you strap me up? My heart rate monitor's sliding down. You put that thing on the court and hold them accountable, those guys are going to make sure that thing is strapped up. When I didn't do that, I was getting what they had for like a turkey sandwich later on that day. That thing was down there like a belt buckle, right? So this is a way for you to get that good compliancy with that. Again, once we're in season, a really great way to elicit a training stimulus and kind of an active recovery is just 20 minutes. Ideally, if we could go right after the game, we could go 20 minutes at 60 to 70%. It's like just flushes the system completely out. NCAA doesn't let me that, so I make that voluntary, optional, voluntary, optional, mandatory, optional. And so we do that. That helps out a little bit. If not, then we encourage them to come in the next day. Do we do that all the time? No. Do we do it when our schedule allows it? Absolutely. So one-dimensional data, three-dimensional model. There's 4 dimensions to athlete development, okay? Mental, cultural, performance, nutrition, rest and recovery, okay? So the unique part about that is the nutrition and the sleep, that happens away from us. But none of your athletes wake up in the morning and go, well, playing like eating like crap today, and I hope I get a shitty night's sleep, okay? None of them do that, right? Nobody does that. But they don't know. So what you have to do is make a meaningful, purposeful understanding of how it impacts what they do and pair it back to what you're trying to do, and you get better compliancy with it. So we use the M400s. I love these because we get sleep quality and quantity off of that. Okay, so I got Jerron Blossom game. The guy's elite. 51 beats recovery, level 3 off the charts. Like a handful of, I can't even, maybe 3 athletes I've trained that's at that level, basketball-wise. Every day, though, had the highest training effect in practice. Smoked. And he's not running around with his hair on fire. I got 1 minute. Sis took up a lot of my minutes, though. He presented every single person before. 3 minutes, perfect. Okay, so that's how I work with my coach. He hates me. But he wasn't running around with his hair on fire. But what did we find out? Sleep. F. I'm like, dude, what are you doing what's going on? Like, what do you do in your bed? Well, I study, I watch TV, I play video games, I listen to music, I read. I knew he was lying about the reading part. And I said, dude, here's the deal. You got 2 jobs to do when you go to your bedroom. You got to go to sleep and you got to have sex. That's it in there. That's the only thing you can do in there. Like, you got to get out of that room. And we changed that up, basically sleep hygiene. We improved his sleep hygiene. Took him from an F to a B. Guess what? Has the lowest training effect. And he should, because he has the best fitness level and the best fitness classification on the team. And he was sold. And so was his teammates. And then the nutrition piece is huge. We teach our athletes, nutricarina-athlete.com. Again, we have to educate. We have to create a meaningful, purposeful way for the athletes to learn and take nutrition seriously. So I had an athlete, again, best conditioned athlete, inducted to High School Hall of Fame, jumps in a car, skips training table, drives 4 hours, gets inducted, gets back up the next morning, gets to her 9 o'clock class, just in time for her afternoon practice the day before a game, which we produce at 2 usually, low to mid 2. She was a 4, which is basically she produced a game load at practice that everybody else had a 2, 2.5. And I printed that up real quick. I'm like, hey, quick meeting. And I share that. And I go, who's the best conditioned athlete? Kristen is. And the end result was, she said, I said, what happened? Why do you think she's got to have it? She didn't eat, coach. She didn't hydrate, coach. And I'm like, yeah. I'm getting excited. If you're going to get upset about your kids doing something wrong, you better get 1,000 times excited about them doing something right. And again, it's not one-dimensional data. If I didn't have the nutrition information and if I didn't have the sleep information, I would have been sitting there going, something's wrong with Jerron's sensor. Something's wrong with his sensor. No, I had the information. I'm able to figure that out, and I'm able to put this 1,000-piece puzzle together a little bit better. That's it. Thanks for my 3 minutes. Appreciate that.